Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai,
Haribo.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, we are studying the Gita, continuing the journey. Chapter 2, text number 25.
6.
Yeah, 25. Thank you. There's some who would like to chant. Maybe you know it by heart. 25.
Sure.
Yeah, database or something.
Yeah,
Hmm? Is this avyaktu yam achintyo yam? Okay.
Another Gita?
Hmm?
That's
Yeah,
next week.
we have some more Gitas for the gentleman here. This is, I think we have. No, this is the Bhagavatamrita. This is something else.
It's another. No.
Okay, so maybe
Okay.
in that place.
This one.
Yeah, one.
German
Okay.
Gita, yeah, but that's alright.
You have to get it in because of the cushions. Okay.
That's not so practical.
Got
Right.
it. It's-
Right. Take turns. Sometimes the devotees use this Veda base, on the mobile. So 225. Krishna has just finished explaining for Arjuna what he's not. What is he not? Anyone knows? What is Arjuna not? The body, yes, thank you. And now his few verses he's going to tell Arjuna what he is and what are his qualities. Okay. Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Avikaryo
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Nanu shochanti arhasi.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Nanu shochatim arhasi.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Nanu shochanti arhasi.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Nanu shochanti arhasi. Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avyakto yam achintyo yam.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Avikaryo yamuchyate.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Tasmadevam viditvainam.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Nanu shochitumarhasi.
Avyaktoyam achintoyam
Avyaktoyam achintoyam
Avikayo yamuchate
Avikayo yamuchyate
Tasmadevam viditvainam
Tasmadevam viritvainam
Nanusochitumarhasi
Narashochitumarasi Avyakta,
Avyakta,
invincible.
invincible.
I am
This
soul.
soul.
Achintya,
Achintya,
inconceivable.
inconceivable.
I am this soul.
This soul.
Avikarya,
Avikarya,
unchangeable.
unchangeable.
I am this soul.
This soul.
Uchate
Ujjate
is sad.
is said.
Tasmat,
Tasmad,
therefore.
therefore.
Evam,
Evam,
like this.
like this.
Viditva,
Viditva,
knowing it well.
knowing it well.
Enam,
Enam,
this soul.
this soul.
Na,
Na,
do not.
do not.
Anushochitum,
Anushochitum,
to lament.
to lament.
Arasi,
Arhasi,
you deserve.
you deserve.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Yai.
Haribo. Krishna speaks. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that it cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. He's also invincible. That's another story. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. There are many things we have to accept solely on the grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father, based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That also is the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison with the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways, just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. Avyaktoyam achintoyam avikaryo yamuchate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitumarhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Om Ganati Minandasya Ganangana Shalakya Shakshuram Militam Yana Tasmashe Guravena Mukam Karoti Vacharam Pangum Dangategrim Yat Kripatam Mahamnande Shigurum Nirataranam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthana Mutale Shamati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Picharani Nirvisheshi Shunavana Pashacharishtarani. So we've been learning that there are two things, the spiritual and the material. The spiritual is the true substance of the entire existence. This is the supreme absolute truth, that which there is nothing beyond. The material is something that appears to have a beginning and an end, like this body or the seasons of the year. However, we can understand from the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his form as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is propounding the achintya, inconceivable oneness and difference philosophy. This philosophy is called the philosophy of transformation. So that which appears to have a beginning and an end in this material world is only involved in a process of change, of transformation. Like the material body, if you look at it in the beginning, it was just a combination of a small sperm and an egg, and then the cells began to develop one by one, or actually maybe two by two, I don't know, and ultimately became a small body that came out of the body of the mother, and then it continued to grow and change into adulthood and then old age, and finally the body stopped working for one reason or the other, and then it is destroyed, not disappearing into nothing, but simply transforming, because the body is biological matter. We were discussing that part of the body is solid state, I think like 20% we were talking about. The rest mostly is liquid state, that's about 80%. And then there's some heat or fire, plasma, to maintain the body. And there's gas in the blood and in the intestines and stuff, minor thing. And ultimately there's ether, because space, otherwise the body wouldn't have any place to go. So the body is like a combination of the bhumir, apo, analo, vayu, kam, the 5 states of material energy. However, we learned also that material energy is nothing but spirit transformed. When the material energy is not manifest, it's avyakta, that's the word used here in the soul, in this verse. The first word is invisible. That means you cannot see it. But it's not only invisible, it's untouchable, unhearable, unsmellable, and untastable. You can't do that to spirit. So for spirit to transform into what we call matter, it has to undergo vyakta, it has to be manifest. And manifest means that all these 5 elements, the bhumir, apo, analo, vayu, kam, they are paired with the 5 senses. So you can feel, touch, the solid state, etc., etc. And what's beyond the 5 elements, you can't perceive with your material senses. It's simple as that. The soul perceives, but encased in the material body, the soul perceives through the material senses, the material sense organs, like this. But when you're dreaming, even if a deaf person or a blind person cannot hear or see when he's awake, in the dream he can see and he can hear, because that's perceived by the soul. So this is very interesting. Spirit is there all the time, constant, non-changing, conscious, self-illuminating, full of joy. But then, for the sake of our redemption, 25% of eternal space is transformed into matter. And there we are, encased in material bodies, and the whole life is simply a dance with the 5 senses contacting the 5 sense objects, the material senses like this. So it becomes vyakta, it becomes manifest in the material world, from being spiritual like this. So the soul is invisible by material senses. It's a very famous verse from Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, saying, Atha Shri Krishna Namati Nabhavet Grayam Indriya Sevan Mukke Jivada Swayam Eva Spurate. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi. Krishna's name, Adi, means it's a list actually. It's it begins with a name. You cannot perceive, in the sense you can't materially see, hear, taste, touch the holy name, because it's transcendental. So when you chant, you contact the Supreme Spirit directly on the platform of the soul, because the Hare Krishna mantra is transcendental sound vibration. It's nothing to do with material sound vibration like, rock music or farting or whatever, this material sound. Krishna's name is transcendental, so it's directly connected with yoga, with the soul. That's why it's so powerful. It activates the lost consciousness or of the soul. So Nam Adi means beginning with the name, but also the form, the pastimes, the paraphernalia, everything which comes with Krishna is not possible. Na bhaved grayam indriya. Indriya means the senses. We spoke about the working senses, and we spoke about the input, the knowledge acquiring senses. So by the knowledge acquiring senses, you can't perceive Krishna. Not possible. However, Krishna, he is very merciful. So for those of us who haven't yet developed a transcendental vision, it's called TV, transcendental vision, he manifests as the Archa Vigraha, the Murti, which is apparently made of a material element. We think it's transformed spirit, but it's not actually. The Archa Vigraha is no different from Krishna, because he can choose to appear in whatever way he wants. He can be appearing within your heart, he's transcendental situated. He can appear within your mind, and he can appear before you as the Murti, which you can see, you can touch, etc. But with the material senses, na bhavet grayam indriya. Seva mukke jivada. The way to perceive Krishna is to transcendental devotional service. Beginning with mukke and jiva. Mukke means mouth, what you speak, and jiva means tongue, what you taste. So when we speak about Krishna, others will be hearing, and without knowing it, they will also do devotional service, because hearing is the first stage. That's the secret with Harinam. If you go out in a city and just chant for your own benefit, wherever, but there are maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of people doing Shravanam. So it's a great benefit. That's why this is the most powerful process of this age. So, Mukkam, what you speak, and Jiva, what you taste. You taste prasadam, that means food which has been offered to Krishna, first in an act of love and devotion. It's an expression of affection. My dear Lord, I cooked some favorite dishes for you, please taste. And then you become sanctified and spiritualized. So by tasting prasadam, you acquire the same qualities. So this is very interesting. So Prabhupada saying you can't, by the process of pratyaksha, this experiment, empirical research, you can't ascertain the existence of the soul. And because Krishna is the Supreme Soul, you certainly cannot ascertain the existence of God simply by using your material senses. However, you can ascertain the presence of the soul, at least in bodies, indirectly by perception. You know, if we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dead bodies in here, nothing will go on, so there will be no symptoms of the soul. It will just be like 8 lumps of organic matter, or 9, I should include myself. I'm actually closer to death than you. So it's nothing. But the soul is there, so there's action, and there's perception, and there's manipulation of the external. Perception by the Gyanindriyas, and manipulation of matter by the Karmendriyas. That's as long as the body is there. As the soul is there. So by perception, you can indirectly perceive, you can have a discussion with a body in which there is a soul, but you can't have a discussion with a dead body. It's very boring. I don't know if anyone would have tried, but you know. So this is how you perceive. However, Krishna is also explaining very nicely what is the process to actually realize the self. It's called self-realization. You realize your own self, and you really realize the Supreme Self, of whom you're actually a small, independent part. Yeah? So there's a section of the Bhagavad Gita, it's called the Chatur Shloki. That's the 4 most important texts of the whole Bhagavad Gita, just like the Bhagavatam has its Chatur Shloki too. So in chapter 10, we will find those. And this particular shloka gives direct direct, it sounds like a contradiction, direct advice how to perceive the soul. It says, Tesham satata yuktanam, bhajatam pritipurvakam, dadami buddhi yogam tam jena mamupayantite. And this is such a brilliant purport, so I will just read it to you. Translation: to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Krishna can do anything. So he says, Patram pushpam palam toyam. Yeah, you can offer to me flower, water, a leaf, a fruit. Yome bhaktya prayachati. It's not only offering, anyone can do that mechanically, but with love and affection. So those two ingredients, you have the expression and you have the love. Yad karoshi yadashnasi, yad juhosi, whatever you do, whatever you say, whatever you give away charity, you do this as a sacrifice to me, Krishna says. Yeah? So that's the thing, constantly devoted, serving me with love, then Krishna will give. Huh? Prabhupada says like this, listen to this, dynamite. In this verse, the word buddhi yoga is very significant. We may remember that in the second chapter of the Lord is instructing Arjuna, he said that he had spoken to him many things and that he would instruct him in the way of buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga is explained. Buddhi yoga itself is action in Krishna consciousness. That is the highest intelligence, and that's the meaning of the word Buddha. Buddhi, that's the intelligence. Yeah? Buddha means intelligence, and yoga means mystic activities or mystic elevation. It means connection. You connect to Krishna through your intelligence. In the conditioned state, we use intelligence to determine whether something can give me some kind of temporary sense pleasure. That's the function. But in Krishna consciousness, you use your intelligence to determine whether there is something that can be used as an expression of love and affection for Krishna. Like this. Yeah? We can expand on this, but I don't think it's necessary. When one tries to go back home, back to God, and takes fully to Krishna consciousness in devotional service, his action is called buddhi yoga. In other words, buddhi yoga is the process by which one gets out of the entanglement of this material world. You understand with your intelligence that this is not a place for a gentleman. Whatever is offered to us here by matter is not very conducive for our spiritual development. That's pure intelligence. The ultimate goal of progress is Krishna. People do not know this. Therefore, the association of devotees and the bona fide spiritual master are important. And on a side note, I feel very blessed because some or another, Krishna, thank you, by your unlimited grace, you have inspired not only one great soul, but the whole team of coming to us today, blessing us with their presence. People who have spent, the major part of their lives dedicated to the devotional service of the Lord. So I'm both humbled and honored to have you here. It makes me happy. Thank you for taking the trouble. One should know that the goal is Krishna, and when the goal is assigned, then the path is slowly but progressively traversed, and the ultimate goal is achieved. Prabhupada is a phenomenal project leader. You have academic experience in project management. What is the first thing you do? You design the goal. This is what we want to accomplish. And then the path will develop from the goal. Prabhupada says the exact thing. Krishna is the goal, and then the path comes, how to reach him. Right? When a person knows the goal of life, but is addicted to fruits of activities, he's acting in karma yoga. That's a mix, You're still doing some egoistic things, although you know. But when he knows that the goal is Krishna, but takes pleasure in mental speculation to understand Krishna, he's acting in jnana yoga. Just like, if you want to find out who your father is, you can have the population of men in the world, which is, 4.5 billion or something. And you can, maybe if you're a white person, you take away all the black ones to begin. But then you start DNA testing the rest. Who is my father? Who is my father's father? It's called neti process. Not this one, not that one. He's not my father. But why don't you go to ask your mother? Prabhupada says here, maybe that was the wrong purport. Was the previous one? Yeah, that was the chapter 2 purport. Yeah. Sorry. When you ask your mother, "Who's my dad?" and she will say, if she's honest, she will say, "Well, it's this guy." We combined X number of years ago, and here you are. This is your dad. Why go through the neti process? It's not this, it's not that, it's that. That means you go to the source. Yeah? So the source or the mother of us is the Vedic Shruti, that's the scriptures, and the spiritual master faithfully following the tenets of the Vedic scriptures, and the sadhus. You know. So we have these three sources of knowledge. And when he knows the goal and seeks Krishna completely, Krishna consciousness and devotional service, he's acting in Bhakti Yoga, or Buddha Yoga equivalent, which is the complete yoga. That means you act with proper understanding, with proper intelligence. You know what is the goal. Ekeha Kurunandana. One-handed determination. Then your mind cannot take you away. This complete yoga is the highest perfectional stage, Prabhupada says. Now, listen carefully. This is for us. You may understand, others may not, but a person may have a bona fide spiritual master, Prabhupada says. He may have, and he may be attached to a spiritual organization. Maybe. But still, if he is not intelligent enough to make progress, then Krishna from within gives him instruction so that he can ultimately come to him without difficulty. The qualification is that the person always engage himself in Krishna consciousness and, with love and devotion, render all kinds of services. He should perform some sort of work for Krishna, and that work should be love. Should be with love. If a devotee is not intelligent enough to make progress on the path of self-realization, but is sincere and devoted to the activities of devotional service, the Lord gives him a chance to make progress and ultimately attain to him. So some of us may not have decided to accept a living spiritual master. Some of us may have had a living spiritual master, but we don't have one anymore. And some of us are attached to a spiritual organization. Some of us are not attached to a spiritual organization. But Krishna says here that from within he will give you, if your sincere endeavors nicely, with love and devotion. Isn't it interesting? You may have a guru, you may be part of a spiritual organization, but if you're sincerely working with rendering service to Krishna with devotion, then Krishna will give you the required knowledge which you need to approach him. Isn't it nice? Yeah?
Great.
It's really great. So we can see that what is more important today is to be sincere in devotional service, to render all kinds of service with love and devotion, with affection. Yeah? So we've been learning about the soul now for a number of verses in the second chapter. And in this text, Krishna tells Arjuna that the soul is invisible, avyakta. You can't perceive the soul in any way directly with your material senses. It is inconceivable, means you can't understand the soul, until you have purified intelligence. With material intelligence, the soul is not possible to understand. It's immutable. That's a very interesting word. Immutable. Prabhupada, in the word by word, he's using the word avikarya, unchangeable. The karma, karanam, has to do with action, with the cause of action. Immutable, which is there in the translation, I guess it's also the original one. You know that you can do mute on your stereo or on your mobile phone. That means you silence it. It's not possible to silence the soul. You can't make it invisible, or only Krishna can do that. Yeah? He can withdraw souls in his own body at the end of the annihilation of the universe. All the souls enter back into the body of Vishnu and remains there in a state of deep, dreamless sleep called Shushupti until the next awakening, when Krishna, or through Vishnu, decides that let's make it manifest again, Vyakta. And then the souls are again impregnated in the material existence. But the soul itself is immutable. You can't lower the volume. You cannot make him invisible or this or that, because you can't do anything else. You can't cut him, drown him, dry him, burn him, kill him. So how can you mute him? No. The soul is there, present in the material body. Maybe not for his full splendor. He's kind of covered with this shell. But it's immutable. And if we know all this, that you can't perceive the soul, you can't understand the soul, you cannot change the soul in any way, burning, killing, drowning, etc., then why should you grieve for the body? Like this, bodies, they come and they go. And in this case, Krishna is trying to instruct Arjuna to do his duty on the battlefield, to go out there and fight fiercely for the good, fight for dharma, fight for religion. And who can understand the motives of Krishna? You know, he could just finish off everybody, but he wants to have some action. Yeah. So he selected a few rare persons to become his direct instruments, and Arjuna was one of them. So he told him, you can take part, use your skills, you know, finish off all these bad elements and take the credit for it, you know. It's it's interesting to see that the whole first chapter is generally a chapter that, you know, us as beginners find kind of uninteresting, because it's full of all these strange names that you can hardly pronounce, and names of bows and names of conch shells and names of people, and so we just skip that, and then we get to the juice. That's the second chapter. Yes, you're not this body, your spirit, soul. When the body dies, you're not going to die. This is what you like. However, first chapter is very interesting, really. The Vishada Yoga means that that's the yoga of lamentation. What happens in the world when there is all of a sudden war, pestilence, bad weather, natural disasters? What do people do?
They waste a lot of time on just lamenting, really.
They're lamenting, and they go to the churches, they go to the mosque, they go to the temple, they go to the synagogue. They take shelter. Please God save me. Which is kind of a karma yoga, but it's yoga. So Arjuna has this precarious situation. Now, he can foresee only disaster. I have my dear brothers here. I have my relatives, cousins, teachers, elderly, which I should respect and pay my obeisances to. On both sides. So how can anything good come out of this? Like people, when they get really miserable in a heavy situation, I have no idea what I can do, or what I shouldn't do. What can I do? What shouldn't I do? This way they end up in a, I can't see any solution. Either they maybe escape. That's what Arjuna said too. I just put my bow right here and I go to the forest, and you know, I don't want to have anything to do with this. But then Krishna said, you know, come on, you've been trained your whole life as a warrior. Arjuna was without doubt one of the most skilled fighters on the whole earth in that time. I mean, he was so powerful. If he would walk into the room here, just by his presence, we would faint. He was so powerful. And then this person started to shake, and tears came, and he didn't want to do his duty. It's so much not Arjuna. And he wanted to go away. So he was lamenting. And Krishna, he was very peacefully practicing what we could call empathic listening. It's very popular nowadays. One should be an empathic listener. So people can spill out all kinds of mental mumble jumble. Yes, yes, you know, like this. No, so he was very empathic. And then when Arjuna was finished, he just sat down. Okay, Krishna, you tell me what I should do. Then empathic listening was over. Now it became empathic talking instead. First, he was smiling. Krishna was listening all this. Yeah, this bad will happen, this bad, and death, and you know, blah, blah, blah. And Krishna said, well, you're speaking wise words, but you're actually a fool. You don't know. So then he starts to instruct about the higher purposes of life. Yeah. Nowadays, of course, one one needs moral and ethical housekeeping, even in a spiritual tradition. And if one is not able to do that, then what can I say? But when there's moral and ethics, it should be for a higher purpose. Like this. Not that you can go out and kill anyone you want. Then you will go to jail. In America, you can even get a lethal injection or something like that. But if you do it on the command of the highest authority, the general and the king or the president, you kill people, then you come back, they can even give you a medal, and they can honor you. That's what Krishna told Arjuna. If you're going to run away now like a coward, people are going to scorn you, speak badly about you. And you know, for somebody who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Well, it's a good way of talking to a kshatriya, isn't it? So Arjuna is the perfect psychologist. So that kind of made Arjuna start thinking, okay, maybe I don't want to, it's okay, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I'll be your instrument. That is the conclusion of the Gita. I will act with higher intelligence. Intelligence given by Shastra, Guru, and Sadhu. So therefore the first chapter is highly intelligent and important because it sets the scene. There's always some big drama. Srimad Bhagavatam, you can imagine somebody walk up to you and say, hey, you have 1 week to live. After 7 days you're going to die. That's a pretty dramatic thing, isn't it? So that's also like the introduction to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now an ordinary person would say, oh my God, 7 days, I have to hurry, do this and drink this and eat that and, whatever, the bucket list. But a transcendental person like Yudhishthira said, okay, well, at least I have 7 days, so now I can really focus on something good. So on the spot he gave up his empire, all his wealth, his castles, everything, enjoyment, and just sat down at the bank of the Ganges, took shelter of the enlightened soul there and just waited until Shukdev Goswami came, number 1 enlightened soul. So the question can be answered, what is the best thing for a person to do when you know you're going to die? We actually share that realization, or at least theoretical realization, with Parikshit, that he knew he had 7 days. We may not have 7, we may have 7 years or 70 years or 7 minutes, we don't know. So the question is relevant for all of us, because we don't know when we're going to leave this body. We can go out in the traffic and get run over by a car tomorrow. So how do we make sure that we are doing to ourselves, which is for our topmost benefit? Yayatma suprasida, that gives complete satisfaction, not to the body necessarily, but to the soul. So that is devotional service, that is acting on the platform of the soul. So for us to come up in the proper mood, to be a little bit receptive, we have to start asking ourselves questions. And if you're fully satisfied, which I believe not many people are in this world, but you meet them in the street, you try to give them a book, I'm fine, I'm good, No, most people are unsatisfied. Many people are suffering from loneliness, especially old people. And the supreme loneliness is when you're cut off from your relationship with God, with Krishna. That's the supreme loneliness. We may think we can compensate that lost relationship by creating many temporary relationships to husband and wife and children and family and friends and boyfriend and girlfriend, this and that, as some kind of surrogate. Just like some people, they take alcohol or drugs thinking it's some kind of liquid happiness or chemical joy. It's a surrogate from the true Anandamaya Vyasat, which is the true nature of the soul. So people basically are suffering from loneliness today. And therefore, like Prabhupada explains, why is there so much suffering in this world? Loneliness is just one of them. And he said it's just simply to remind you that you do not belong here. The body may belong here because it's transformed matter. From dust you will come, dust you will be, or fecus or ashes or whatever the body. destiny is. But you, the spirit soul, you don't belong in a material body. You don't belong in this environment. You know, Krishna and his material energy, they are the perfect bartenders. We'll take some birth, death, disease and old age and spice it with little adhyatmika klesha, the daivika klesha, the bhautika klesha. Here, drink, enjoy. Here's, you know, the success of materialistic life. Well, there's some small portions of temporary success, otherwise we would be insane. But in this environment, there's a good mix of some enjoyment and some suffering, so we must start questioning. If it's only enjoyment, you would think, you know, I'm fine, you know, I'm good. That's, you know, who needs anything? And if it's only suffering, it's, oh, let me get out of here, please, I don't want to suffer anymore. But here's like a little of each. So we start thinking one day, but I was so happy yesterday, you know, now she broke up with me, and then, oh, this one, I want to go, and then da-da-da-da-da, you know, I'm so much in love, you know. So it, from one day to the other, it makes us going, keeps the machine ticking, like the donkey and the carrot, you know. If I take one more step, they have the stick and a big juicy carrot in front of the nose, yes, and one more stick, you know. But then the carrot is moving, you know. You never really get the carrot. That's a predicament. So this is what goes on in the material world. And this is what Krishna tries to elevate Arjuna from not being part of, like this. Sounds like we have a little mouse there.
A big one.
A big mouse, yeah. It's another living being. Yeah. And that's why we need to treasure this valuable human form of life. We got a female or a male human body, which, like everybody else, or the mammals, the movable living beings, those who are not only equipped with the Jnanendriya, but also with the Karmendriya, can move around. We eat, we sleep, we multiply, and we fight and try to defend ourselves. That's the instincts. A wise person don't make this into some kind of science or art. The art of sleeping, you have to get this 25,000 crown computer controlled mattress in your, or water bed, or the art of mating. I mean, there's movies and literature. The art of eating, like all the chefs, they're like very prominent on television, you know, nowadays. How to cook and how, you know, create. We have some seminars of Vedic cooking also, so we know a little bit about the art of satisfying the jiva, the tongue. But that's not the goal of life, ultimately. And the art of defense, you know, martial arts or military art, no, we are not interested in that. The art is the science of self-realization. That's interesting for a human being, because we're not only working on the platform of the impulses, the impulse to eat, impulse to sleep. We can think more than the animal. We can communicate, we can read scriptures, we can ask, what's the meaning of life? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I realized that I would grow up and there will be more of this eating and going to the toilet and, you know, this and having a work and getting a family. Isn't there anything more? Is this my destiny? There must be something more, you know, more to it. So then you start looking and searching. Animals don't do that. They look for food, they look for some mate, they look for a protected place where they can sleep, or they can, you know, be safe from aggressors. That's the impulses. And thinking about it, most of the material civilization, however sophisticated it is geared towards these impulses. You know, with big fancy big houses with, you know, burglar alarm and TV monitors, and to protect from aggressors and defend, and wonderful big bedrooms, and to be able to sleep nicely, and big kitchens so we can prepare stuff like that. And but this is kind of a misused intelligence. If you only do that and forget, it's like keeping a bird in a cage. You know, you have a beautiful bird and you're busy polishing, making the cage shiny. Oh, look what a beautiful cage I have. But you don't give any seeds or water to the bird. And the bird is sitting there, oh, when can I eat? And it falls and dies. So you, the soul, is basically like a bird which is caught in a cage. And we spent hours before the mirror, nice clothes and nice car and money, fortune, fame, knowledge, Nobel Prize and all this PhD, and we forget about ourselves. We have spiritual needs because we are a spiritual body. We should not neglect our material needs, meaning eating, sleeping, relaxation. Krishna says in the 6th chapter, important, because we have this machine, you have to maintain it, but we don't have to overdo it. We live simply, therefore we call it simple living, high thinking. We satisfy our material machine, yantra rudani mayaya, with what it needs. Try to eat healthy, sleep enough, not too much, not too little, etc. But we don't overdo it. The rest of the time we use for self-realization, ourselves, spirit soul. So that's the process given by Krishna and by the acharyas. If you can become self-sufficient, you don't have to spend so much time commuting to the city and working in an office, boring, get some money and you have to pay huge rent and maintain cars and all that stuff. You can live very simply because you're already satisfied in the heart, the soul. Yeah? Not this fashion, a big wardrobe with all these dresses and 300 pairs of shoes. I remember some movie star. It's not the goal of life. It makes life very complicated, actually. The less you possess, the less you're afraid of losing, and the less you have to keep track on, the less you have to get insured, etc. But of course, some of us are prepared to take on a little bit more labor, like, developing and running a farm in Denmark and Sweden, just to make a platform to invite people to see and practice this simple living, high thinking. You cater for the body, but you also cater for the needs of the mind and the soul. So that's important to understand, and we've been talking previously about the bodily platform, the mental platform, and the spiritual platform. Both are there, all three of them, we have to relate to them, but out of the three, if you do the two lowest platforms perfectly, there's no gain, really. Because you will lose everything. You lose the body, you lose your well-being, you will lose your relatives, your bank balance, you will lose your mobile phone, your computer. At the moment of death, finished. But further on in this chapter, 2, Krishna will explain that in the endeavor of yoga, whatever you do for him and for you, because what you do for him, you automatically do for you. Because it's like watering the root of a tree. There's no loss, there's no diminution. Whatever you accomplish spiritually is for your eternal credit. You may be famous, somebody will make a statue, and then you die, so people will keep it there for maybe 100 years, and the pigeons have somewhere to sit and shit, That's what they do on statues, You see there's all this stuff on that's the pigeons. You have a nameplate, so and so, he was this and he did that, and But what you do for the soul is for your eternal credit. Because it's spiritual. You are spiritual, devotional service is spiritual, Krishna is spiritual. So whatever happens within that arena is for your eternal advancement. So even if you only make 1% advancement in this lifetime, next lifetime you will be guaranteed starting from 2%. That's the explanation. Fortunately, we have the scriptures, we have the acharyas, advanced devotees, to get guidance from, because one cannot invent a path. Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. Krishna, Supreme God, is the one who tells you how to reach him. He gives religion, he gives yoga. Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Dadami Buddhu. Jena Mam Upayantati. How you get to Krishna. He gives. It's on his terms. Not that you kind of make a detail out of cheese and you offer sausages or whatever. You can imagine people have such a fertile brain. We had a recent example of someone who created his own religion, and where will that lead? There's no goal. The goal defines the path. So I think we will end here the Bhagavad Gita. Just enjoy the phenomenal character and qualities of you, the soul. They are unrivaled by anything else. The splendor, the eternality, the joy. The Spirit Soul Ki Jai. Any question or comment? Yes, sir.
Well, you touched on that Krishna is avyakta, but manifested in the deity. But still we see there's a difference between Krishna standing there for most of us and the deity. So what is the difference? Where is this? Where is it vyakta in the middle? Where is it avyakta for the deity and Bhagavatam for that reason?
Well, when Radha Giridhari came to us, they were statues standing on a shelf in some friend or acquaintance home. You know, ordinary human being, eating meat, smoking, drinking. But through Krishna's tricky ways, he ultimately manifested himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because of the vision of his devotees. You can understand that. So from one point it looks the same, but from another doesn't. There are so many theories like the Big Bang. You know, I don't say it's wrong. I mean, Vishnu could manifest the universe through a Big Bang, but we're also interested what's before the Big Bang. That's kind of what's beyond the Big Bang. Like that. What's before and beyond the evolution. We don't really say that's wrong. Bodies can change like that. But I don't know, maybe you have some comment on this. The Vyakta, Avyakta.
I remember once Prabhupada he asked, in the beginning Prabhupada would ask his disciples to give lectures. And I heard once in Vrindavan he asked one of his young disciples to give lecture, and Prabhupada was sitting there, so we can imagine he was quite nervous. And he was speaking for a long time how Krishna was in the deity. And then after the lecture, Prabhupada raised his hand. And Prabhupada asked, so which part of the deity is Krishna in?
Which part?
Which part of the deity is Krishna in?
You mean the arms, the legs, the head? All right?
And Prabhupada said, no, Krishna is not in the deity, Krishna is the deity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's true. He is, yeah. There's also a difference between us because we are in the body. We are not the body. So Krishna is the deity form. Archa Vigraha.
But isn't that what we call Achintya Veda Tattva?
Well, when it comes to Krishna, I don't think there's so much achintya. There's no doubt that he is what he is. But us, we are both independent. In a sense, we have free will, although we are part of Krishna. So logically speaking, we shouldn't have a free will. But we do, because that's the basis of love. That's the way Krishna, in the, I don't know if the Chandogya or Shatashvatara Upanishad, Krishna said that he wanted to become many, and he glanced, by his glancing, he became many, so he can enjoy Ras, the bliss coming from intimate loving relationship. So that's, I would say, that's the achintya, the simultaneous oneness and difference. It's also not very easy to understand how everything is spiritual. From the physical point of view, it's more easy for me personally to see the difference if something has a spiritual purpose or not. You know, not that matter is spirit transformed, but something that is used in the service of Krishna, that's spiritual. Something which is not used or used for your own personal sense gratification, that's material. So you can have a definition by purpose, but you can also have a definition by physical mechanics. What is spiritual? Like 25% of infinity, that's the material world. 75% is spiritual world of infinity, by the way. So that's the achintya part, I would say. It sounds like breakfast is coming up. Thank you very much. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Great.
Yeah,